So when you're ready to print your worksheets, you're going to want to know how to make sure that the margins and the orientation and even the size of your paper prints are what you need them to be. And you can also do things like set up a print area, meaning this is only the area that I want to print, and we'll show you how to do some of these custom items. So first things first, let's go to the File tab and go down to the Print option. We're going to click on that. And you have your typical printing, whichever printer you're going to. Settings, right now print active sheet. That's why it's not showing anything else. If there were extra pages in the workbook, it would only show this one because that's the setting right now. Collating 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 as in page numbers. And then portrait orientation. So as I look at this, I've got one of 4 pages, so I can see this information, but it's cutting off on the right. So if I go here, it looks like the bottom of the first page, which is becoming page 2, and then the right-hand side of all that data and the bottom of the right-hand side. So I have all this. So maybe if I change portrait, which is basically up and down the taller orientation, to landscape, going more a wide orientation, maybe I can get more. Well, close. It's still cutting off some of the other fields. So if I go to page 2, and then it's what's left over on pages 3 and 4. So I do get a little bit more. Okay, so we could do that. The paper size could make this a little bit different. For example, if I did 8.5 by 14, then I can get it all on 2 pages. I got a lot of white space over here, so it's kind of odd, but it's kind of working. But another thing I can do is change my margins. Right now I have normal margins, and this is going off your screen here, so let me pull this up. Let me scroll down. There we go. So we have a 1-inch border all the way around, and then we have 3/4 inch top and bottom, and then left to right instead of a 0.7 inch. So let's try that one. And did we get anything more there? Well, we picked up a little room, but it's really trying to get it all in here, and it's basically wide enough. We just can't get it on that particular set here. So let's try 8.5 by 11 again, and we get back to the 4. So we've got narrow margins. Maybe what we could do is scaling. So I'm going to bring this up again. There, we do that. And scaling. Fit sheet on one page or fit columns on one page, meaning columns going across the top. So I could do that, and there we go. It's nice and clean. It pushes it out to the edge here, and then I go to page 2. So that looks better. Looks a lot nicer than that big white space on the right. So you have lots of different options with scaling. Fit sheet on one page. That's really tiny. So if you were to print that, the data would be very small. So fitting all columns on one page, make sure that from left to right, everything would fit there. So that's one way to do it. You can also do a lot of these same changes in the page layout tab. So here I have margins, and it's picking up the options that we chose during the print under File. So it does capture those. So if you change them in the print area, it keeps those with that file. You also have custom margins here, and this takes us to page setup margins, and you have the ability to increase these or decrease these by a 1/4 inch every time, or you can type in your settings for each one, top and bottom. Center on page horizontally, if you click on that, then it's going to try to center everything going left to right, and then vertically from top to bottom. So it's trying to take whatever's in there and center it, in this case, both directions. So that's not a bad thing to do there. So I'm going to click OK, and then let's go back to File and Print. And I'm not sure, it looks a little bit more centered, but it's not as dramatic because we're filling up a lot from left to right, so it didn't do a huge difference there. So let's go back to page layout. Orientations here, we changed it from portrait to landscape, so it went ahead and did that for us. Size, we looked at a different size, but we stayed with 8.5 by 11. So I've got that. One thing we haven't looked at, and this was one item we need to cover, it's called the print area. Select an area on the sheet you'd like to print. And what's really nice about this is that you are able to select an area for printing, and then that's all it will print if that's what you want it to do. So why would you do that? Well, for example, we're looking at project task and some information. There might be some sensitive information on here, okay? Or you're presenting only certain parts of all this, okay? So for example, if it's nice and clean, I could say, okay, when I present this information, I'm only going to be looking at this information, and I want to print that out for the meeting participants, and that's all I want. Or the rest of this information is always confidential, so I'm going to set a print area and make sure that whatever anybody prints on this, it's definitely, at least this will be the first print and the only print. You'd have to protect everything else to keep it from printing, but if you set the print area, what that does is it allows you that option to print just that section. So I've selected this area here, and I click set print area. There we go. And you see right here it's called print underscore area, so it's this part. So I'm going to click away, and then let me just show you a neat feature, and we'll cover more about the name box in other sessions. But if I hit the down arrow and I choose print area, it shows you what's going to print. And then if you go to file, print, that's what it's looking at. Okay, so by default it's just going to print that part of it. So if I go print now, this is the only thing that's going to appear. So really smart ways to set up your prints, and if you want to really define specific printing areas, then you're able to do that. So let's go back to page layout, page setup, print area. If I no longer want to do that, I have an option here to clear the print area. So this is all still selected, but print area is no longer there. And if I go to file, print, then I'm back to printing all of it based on my last print settings. So don't forget that as you change the print settings and you save it, it will keep those settings with that workbook until you change it.